Hey, welcome to Talk to the Internet number. What was it?
32.
Is it 32?
30.
Yes.
Maybe.
I think you're right. No, I think you're actually right. Number 32, Lawrence. I didn't want to say Lawrence is sick because I don't want people to worry that he's like got corona. He's not sick. He pulled something really bad while working out, which I've done before, and it sucks. Criken resubbed to my channel and said Lawrence isn't sick.
I did it for you.
Thanks.
I tried to. You said you didn't want to say it, so I said it for you.
That's funny.
So Lawrence pulled something real bad, and he's gonna have to he's chilling out a little bit. So in his place, we have Party Petah.
Hi, welcome, guys.
So you're Peter or
Thanks for having me.
Peter, Petah? What's your actual name? Thanks for having me.
My name is Peter.
It is Peter.
Peter,
it's
yeah,
Peter,
yeah,
but
yeah,
people
yeah.
call you Petah.
Yes, sir. That's my internet alias.
That's okay.
Do you think? Did you name yourself that after the hit sensation that was Hunger Games with the character
No.
Petah?
No, actually, mine is spelled Petah. And did you ever play a game called RuneScape?
Of course.
There's a baller guy in Falador. You know what I'm talking about? The one that wore the party hat and their expensive clothing.
Mm-hmm.
That's exact party. His name was Party Pete. And
Party
I had a
Pete.
bunch of British friends growing up that I would game with, so they would always refuse to call me by my British people.
Wait,
They
so
would
was that
refuse-
you?
No. They would refuse to call me Peter. They always say Petey or Peta. So then it kind of just stuck.
Ah.
My name was Peta.
Got it.
Okay. So you're named after another player in RuneScape.
Another non-existing player. Yes. Yeah.
An NPC.
Yeah.
Okay.
As an
I
NPC.
forgot I was an NPC. Okay. Very cool.
Mhm.
Peter, I've gotten to know through a bunch of other people, including Farley, but also apparently Peter worked on the Rooster Teeth community for a long time, which I didn't,
Little-
and I actually didn't. I also met him through Alfredo from Achievement Hunter, and Peter's joining us today to talk about I don't know what because we're not even sure what we'd really do on this show other than just talk about things. So
Yeah, we just wing it.
we just wing it.
We just wing it.
Speaking of which, Criken, the biggest news. I think the first person I thought of when I saw this today was you. The biggest news. I woke up this morning to Pokemon Snap on the Switch, and the first thing I thought of was Criken. And
That warms my heart.
I remember making fun of Pokemon Snap when I was 19 or whatever it was, because all my friends were like, "You got to play this game where you take pictures of Pokemon," and I was, "Shut up!" But now I'm so excited about it. Now I'm so excited.
Right?
I'm really excited about it. So, Criken,
We could all do with putting the brakes on. I think games in the last decade have really been on a runaway train to try to chase this, impossible sun that is, better graphic fidelity,
Mhm,
better gunplay, Fortnite, whatever it is. And then, Nintendo's like, whoa. What if we just took pictures? And everyone's like, ah! We're just going back to the basics, baby, and I'm very excited because I was actually wondering this because in the Sword and Shield Pokemon games, there's all that controversy in that they didn't include the whole Pokedex,
right?
And they were like, oh well, we got to remake all the Pokemon in this new 3D model mode, and everyone was like, boo. But also in the back of my head, I thought, hey, if they're remaking all these Pokemon 3D models, that makes it infinitely easier to make a new Pokemon Snap game. So maybe there's an ulterior motive to this. And lo and behold, here it is. So I don't want to say I predicted it, but I definitely predicted it.
I think you predicted it, but also it's a multi-billion-dollar franchise, so I think it's pretty.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, it's pretty common that we were going to get a Pokemon Snap. Everybody knew. So, Criken,
For sure.
why should we be excited about this? Taking pictures of Pokemon. My friends couldn't describe this to me before, so I'm curious to see if you could describe this to me now.
Please.
See, they can't. They don't. Nobody knows.
It's okay. Imagine going to the arcade, and there's
Yeah.
those classic on-rail shooters where you're going through a haunted mansion and zombies are popping out. It's that, but instead of the zombies popping out, there's just Pokemon doing their own thing.
Oh,
They're just having their day. And I think one of the underrated things about Pokemon, or I guess one of the unspoken things about it, is that whenever you're capturing Pokemon, you're taking them out of their habitat and making them fight for you, and then they just become a tool for you to do your thing.
Right.
And there's this whole kind of mystique about Pokemon that has been what is their everyday life? Like, what the anime shows of like, oh, there's a fucking 1,000 Pidgeys flying overhead. And like, whoa, that's so majestic. And there's no way you can capture that in these Pokemon games. And so suddenly Pokemon Snap comes out and they're like, hey, let's just appreciate nature for what it is. And so it gives you a glimpse into the life of how these Pokemon would actually be out in the wild. And it makes them more believable for a lot of people. So I think that's why they liked it.
Do you find it sad that we, as human beings, could not make a video game where we take pictures of real animals, but instead made up animals? Why can't we have an appreciation for our real nature?
No,
we have a lot of hunting games. We got a lot of hunting games.
I mean,
it's basically the
that's
same
true.
thing. You just
It's
take a
similar.
different kind of shot.
We do kill them.
Yeah.
Just take a different kind of
Yeah,
shot.
we do kill them though.
So we're appreciating them too.
Well, you know what? I'm going to tell you this. I'm super excited. I can't wait. I'm definitely going to play it, and I'm going to take
Ooh.
so many pictures of so many legendaries because I have no idea what Moltres does in his off time. But
Moltres. Well, first you got to hatch him. You got to hatch him by throwing a bunch of apples at it to knock it into a volcano. So that's the thing I forgot to mention about.
I remember this. I remember you had to throw apples. That's right. Oh,
Yeah.
what a concept for a game, dude.
Yeah, the thing about Pokemon Snap that I forgot to mention is that although you're mostly just kind of appreciating them in their livelihood, if you actually want to progress in the game, you have to pelt apples at these Pokemon to get them angry, and then they'll do a move. And if you capture that move, you get more points. So it's not exactly just the pure peaceful nature walk. You also, assault these poor things. I think there's also like a smelling ball. You threw like a stinky ball, and they're like, oh, and it made them like do other things because they were so offended by the smell of it.
Okay. Peter, what's your exposure to Pokemon Snap?
I will say I grew up as any other Asian American did, loving Pokemon as a kid. Probably played everything through Pokemon Emerald, but that's actually that gen is kind of when I like petered off of Pokemon.
Yeah.
So I didn't even really get into it with the whole craze with like Pokemon Go back in like 2000 and.
See, that's what got me. That's what got me into it. So I was too old when I was a kid because I missed Pokemon. I was Ninja Turtles, not Pokemon. And
that's still a good one. That's still a good one.
So yeah, I guess it is kind of barely. But then when Pokemon Go came out, for some reason it hooked me.
Yeah.
That's what got me into it. And I was like, oh my gosh! Like I literally had no idea of the original 163 Pokemon or whatever it was until Pokemon Go. So then I got exposed to that, and then I also did Pixelmon, which was the Pokemon tournament with Criken in Minecraft, and that got me super into it too.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so that was really fun. And
that's probably the closest that anything's come to Pokemon Go since it came out, has been this Pixelmon mod where you kind of just see them wandering around and you can explore as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah. It's I don't know. I think we repeatedly say this, but the last time we looked, Lawrence and I looked, I think Pokemon is the largest franchise that exists in terms of revenue. So larger than Harry Potter, larger than Star Wars, larger than all of it. It makes
it's bigger than Star Wars.
People, I'm pretty sure it makes more. I don't actually know this.
Wow.
I'd have to go look again, but it's somewhere in the it's like 90 billion or something. It's like it's larger than Marvel. It's larger than all that shit. So
wow, that's insane.
It's just because of the buying power over the course of 30, 40 years, whatever it's been. The biggest media brand in the world. Yeah, that's so it's to me it's one of those things I'm always surprised I never got into. And when I see a lot of people excited about it, I'm like, yeah, of course. Everybody grew up with it. It's part of everybody's lives now. So I'm excited. I'm excited for it. There was no release date, right?
I don't think so.
No, that's too bad. That's really too bad.
How long till Disney buys Pokemon? I wonder if there's going to be like at the end of the world the two corporations left are going to be like Nintendo / Pokemon and Disney. Face off, because that's where it seems like we're heading to that.
You're right. The Nintendo and Disney are both like family friendly. Kids are indoctrinated with them, from when they're 2 years old on up, and so then they end up becoming just like they're not even like a. I think we talked about this last podcast, but they're not a brand to people. They're part of their lives. That's the way they that's the way they identify with the world, what through their video games or through their movies or so. And it's modern myth. It's not even like a video game anymore. And there's I don't know.
Very much
I think
so.
it's pretty cool. It's like what people had with the Iliad and the Odyssey way back. Is like when those were written. That's what Pokemon was back then. Was people knew the Iliad and the Odyssey. They had it memorized and they talked about it for hours and hours and hours. And those were their modern myths. And it's the same for now. We have we've got Star Wars and Harry Potter and Pokemon.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I wonder if there was like an Iliad Odyssey equivalent that came out with like weekly installments, like a comic book, or maybe not weekly, but like yearly.
You mean like
where
Yearly.
like way back?
yeah, like this next episode of Odysseus, and he like
No, I know what you're
goes-
saying. Yeah.
Mhm.
and then he like does another Odyssey, and then everyone talks about it for another year, and like analyzes every bit of it, and the next piece comes out.
I think.
I don't know. I don't know if you have any like historians in chat that know things better than we do.
Yeah, because I do. Man, I like with Beowulf and those sorts of stories when they were written. I don't know that they had they may have had things added on to them because I think the Iliad. Which one was written first, the Iliad or the Odyssey? I can't remember. But the was it the Iliad? I don't
I think it was
I don't remember.
the Odyssey, wasn't it?
I really honestly don't know. But what I was going to say was
Okay,
I think one of them was written after the other one, sort of like what Criken's talking about, where it was like a next installment
Mhm.
of because I think that is Odysseus in the Iliad, and then
Yes.
and then Odysseus. I'm pretty sure Odysseus is in the Iliad. I could be wrong. Again, I could totally be wrong. But Odysseus was in the Iliad, and then they wrote the Odyssey based on Odysseus. I could be completely and totally wrong with this.
Yeah, again, like this was all since like high school, so I forget a lot of it too. But I'm pretty sure he was like an integral character of the Iliad, and then they like focused on his POV for the Odyssey of like, yeah, I guess it would have been like a sequel almost, or like a continuation of the story.
Yeah.
Which then like, do you think there are advertisements like around, like around these Athens and whatever? Like there's like coming in 2 ticks of the sundial. Like,
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, probably.
100%. I mean, like,
advertisements everywhere.
yeah, of course. So Scott Joseph in my chat just said the Iliad came first,
Mhm.
and I think you're totally right. I mean, like they would if somebody had written a new story or a new epic or it was all spoken word like they were talking about Beowulf, I bet people around the village were like, "Yo, have you heard this fucking story? Like this dude tells this story so well." And it's about like these fucking dragons and like this guy sailing like if you got to hear it. And so then they sit everybody down probably once a month or whatever, and like the dude come out and tell the story and he'd blow everybody away. I mean, that's what we're doing now. That's what
It's true.
That's what we're doing now.
It's pretty true, actually. Yeah.
It's cool. It's fun to think of that. It's fun the way to think of like entertainment back then because that's all it was. It was just it's entertainment. It just wasn't capitalized on. Although actually no, it was. Yeah, people paid their entertainers all the time. What the fuck am I talking about?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
All the time.
Shit's been the same way for thousands of years.
For thousands of years. Yeah. It's literally been the same way.
Yeah. So it's I mean it's all the same. They were Twitch streaming back then, but they were telling the Iliad,
Just in person.
the Iliad and Odyssey, and they were telling it in person. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. I know it's cool to think about that. So that's what I think of Pokemon is nowadays is modern myth. But
Yeah.
That's an interesting way to put it. And when you put it that way, yeah, it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
If you walked up to a random person and said it's like modern myth, they'd probably look at you a little weird, like.
I was taught it in high school a long time ago. There's a guy named Joseph Campbell who wrote
Yeah.
cannot remember the name Man with 1,000 Faces, and there's another basically it's the hero story and it's modern myth, and he was comparing the oldest stories like Beowulf and the Odyssey to Star Wars, and he's like it's all the same. It's all the same. It's all the same story. It's just roles have changed a little bit, but it's all basically the same. And ever since then, I was like, wow, that blew my mind because that's what it is. Every hero story is for
Every hero series is exactly the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. Harry Potter, Star Wars, all of it's literally all the same thing.
And I'm watching.
all the same
I'm getting
thing.
through Avatar right
Yeah.
now. I'm almost done with Avatar. Hero's Journey. That's what it is.
Oh.
I'm getting through Avatar: The Last Airbender,
Mm-hmm.
and it's fucking awesome. But also, it's that. It is exactly that.
It's the same. It's the same story.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's little changes here and there, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just so much fun. It's just so much fun to think that you get fooled by it every time, but then you get sucked in, and it's clearly something that's ingrained in all of us. That we
Right,
all want to
yeah,
see it,
yeah.
we all want to hear about it, we all want to like, and I wonder if it's just all based on hope. Like, do we all hope that things will be better?
Yeah,
You know, I don't know.
it's an
I think
interesting.
I think we are, yeah.
I am pretty interested in the concept of like what like internal kind of rhythm the hero's journey resonates with us with so well, because there's a kind of a segue, but back to like SCP. There's an SCP that I particularly like a lot that is called the hero's journey, which is basically like a book where if you like read the beginning of the book and then go to sleep, you have a dream in which you personally like go through the entire hero's journey.
Mhm.
Like you're brought to like your own fantasy world. Like, imagine like you're dropped into a new life into the middle of Lord of the Rings, and it's like based on how creative you are is how long you'll spend in this world and basically like live it out. And so this like entry goes on to talk about, people that aren't very creative, like wake up after, one night and they're like, oh, it's kind of a weird dream. And then there's like one scientist who played like D&D on the side and like was really immersed in this stuff,
Mhm.
that read the book and then spent, I think by his records, like 50 years in this dream where he like had a whole new life
Yeah,
as this character. And then
Wow.
he like killed himself when he woke up because he was like, nothing in life can ever, reach that same high
Right.
that this hero's journey managed to like hit for me. So I wonder if that's like why things
Jesus.
like, Dungeons and Dragons and, all these tabletop role-playing games are still so relevant and successful, is because they're like our fastest way to get to
definitely.
that sort of hero's journey experience,
100%. I mean, like you
Yeah.
hit the nail on the head. D&D. That's exactly it. Like everyone's saying in my chat, I was saying everyone's the hero of their own story, and that's what D&D is. It's like everybody wants to think we're the main character in D&D, even though there's whatever 9 people playing. But it's easy because we can dream it all up. It's all fake. We don't have to worry about real life. I guess interfering with our hero's journey. Yeah, that's exactly right. Peter, sorry, I think I interrupted you.
No, you're
Oh,
good.
okay.
I thought that was it's an interesting idea. Kind of also not exactly the same, but also like RP servers, like GTA recently started to get a lot of traction again.
Mhm.
And with that is like their RP servers have been really getting flooded too. And it's kind of like in the same vein of you can be whoever you want to be, and you can have that journey, you can have all those things that you wouldn't do necessarily. Not exactly a hero's journey, but something very similar in that same idea.
Yeah.
And just achievable through, I guess, your imagination. Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I mean, because obviously we're the hero of our own story in real life.
Oh yeah.
But
I'm the villain.
I was just about to ask the question though. Like,
Mhm.
has there ever been a time that have you ever seen anybody or yourself even gone, wait a minute, I'm the villain in this story? Like, let's say in a portion of your life, or in like even like in an interaction that you've had or something, like you sort of pulled back a little bit and like, oh no, hold on, this is totally different. Like, I'm not at all doing the right thing. I'm doing the wrong thing. And I know I've done that a bunch of times in my life, where I pulled out and
Yeah.
been like, oh shit, like, oh my gosh, all those things that I thought about, that I thought I was doing the right thing along the way, I wasn't doing that. I was being totally stupid. And I would honestly, I'd text people or call them and be like, hey, I've totally fucked up, man. I'm really sorry. That was really stupid. I thought I was doing the right thing, and it was exactly the wrong thing. I don't know if that's ever happened to you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I think though that in the sense of, have you ever thought that you're the bad guy or the villain? No, because even when you realize like what you've like in your situation, like hindsight, right? You're always the good guy in your story, because there's all this like context that's applied to you and only you specifically, because you're aware of all of it, right? So nobody's ever really the bad guy in their story. But yeah, of course, there's like a million times in hindsight we're like, oh, that was a really dumb thing I said or did, it's the way I acted and all that, and I just I was blind to it before.
Mhm.
But yeah, I've definitely had that 100%. Yeah.
In my situation, I think if there's ever been a moment that's close to that, it's that I can put myself in their shoes and see from their perspective. They could think I'm the bad guy, but it doesn't reconcile with me, and so I have to try to like do things and make like say the right thing or make an action that will better get our perspectives together
Mhm.
and explain kind of align them again. But sometimes people are so far apart in their perspectives that it's very hard to find that common ground again, or they've already made a decision, and to protect their own psyche they're not going to listen to any other, they're not going to compromise on it at all. And I've definitely been in that situation before, and that's very tough for me personally, because I think I'm a very empathetic person. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
when I can sense that there is a misalignment, then I try to fix it. And when it becomes clear there isn't fixing it, which has only happened a handful of times for me, but when it has happened, it's been like it's rocked me to my core, because I feel like
Absolutely.
I have failed personally
Yeah.
in finding that common ground, even though it's not necessarily my fault.
I mean,
Yeah.
to your point, Criken, that happens all the time, and it'll probably never stop happening to you personally. Like, there's gonna be, like, you'll have more in common with some people and less in common with others, but there'll always be those miscommunications, because sometimes just get caught in your own head, and then you sort of pull out to the larger view and go, oh shit, I wasn't being empathetic in that situation. Actually, Peter, you mentioned you have a psychology degree, and
Yeah, absolutely.
I assume empathy plays a very large part in
It does.
in all of
It
that.
does. If there's anything that I've learned over my education, is that nobody is intentionally an asshole anywhere on planet Earth. It's just simply people come from different backgrounds, different environments. This is how things are there, right? And it's just basic ignorance. It's not even in a negative connotation. How can you be the bad guy or understand that you're doing something wrong if you just simply aren't exposed to it for your whole life and you don't see how it can be wrong? You know, is you don't. And if you knew that it was like, if you came from the same experiences as this other person, like you said, empathy, right? Um, if you truly understood and knew about that other person from their perspective, their shoes, you would not say what you did, or you wouldn't say what you said, or you wouldn't do what you did, right?
Right.
Because at the basic human instinct, we're empathetic social creatures, It's like it's not in our nature to be a jackass to people, right? It just comes down to people not understanding, It's just they're not exposed to it yet, and they don't know. And then sometimes it gets to the point where age gets to a point where you can't, it's impossible to bridge that gap because of just way things have been, sometimes. But yeah, if everyone could truly fully understand each other, we would have like no problems. But that's not how the world works. So
Yeah.
we do what we have to do.
But yeah, as I say, and that's what
Just do what we have to
that's
do.
what Criken was describing, where it's you have sort of an epiphany and you go, oh shit, all right, well
Pretty much.
let me try and right that wrong as much as I can, because I just think of like I think of the worst people in the world. You think of the Hitlers and the
Yeah.
do they I mean, I'm sure maybe they, I don't know, maybe they didn't have people around them being like, everything you're doing is wrong. Like, all of it, everything you're doing is bad. They probably just didn't. They had a bunch of people just not telling them, and so then they felt like, I don't know. It's just it's such an interesting.
But that's the thing. Even if they had people around them telling them like, "Hey,
Didn't matter.
everything you're doing is wrong," it's just again. It's like words can't always communicate everything,
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
If you don't have that capacity to break apart as to like, okay, why, and then think in depth, right? Or it's a weird way to put it into words, but it just comes out like people can tell other people, hey, this is all wrong. This is like all sorts of wrong. You're doing a terrible thing, right? But if they don't have the ability to see past their own context as to why they're doing things, it's hard to bridge that gap. So I doubt it. Yeah, I doubt that there's. I mean, I can definitely say there have been terrible people in history who probably didn't fully realize ever at any point that what they were doing was completely wrong.
Well, a lot of people in our chats are making the point that like people like that, if like Hitler, if if somebody was telling them, hey, that maybe we shouldn't do that, they'd just kill them. I think that's probably your best indication that you're the bad guy. And that's actually that's the thing that I was just having this conversation the other day with a friend who, or maybe it was my dad, who like if you get into an argument with somebody and one person is screaming at you and telling you you're wrong and you're just standing there, not silent but like still cool, calm, and collected, they look like the crazy one. They always look like the crazy one, and it doesn't matter if they have a point. They look like the crazy one. So if you're in a situation where like a bunch of people are telling you you're wrong, and then you're just, instead of being like, maybe, then you're getting rid of them as friends, or getting rid of them as whatever else, that might be time to then turn the lens on yourself. Where you're like, and I don't mean like killing them, I just mean like, not being their friend anymore or whatever, like because they disagree with you. That might be then you have to start actually really looking outside of yourself and going like, why am I losing all of my friends when doing this specific thing? Yeah, I don't know. It's just it's something I think about almost on a daily basis, actually. Just because, just because it's human communication, and communication to me is probably one of the most important things in my life, if not the most important.
We just have conflicting messages come in. That's all it is. Because you have people who, say like, hey, if they're not good for you, just like cut them out of your life, right? And then we have people who, like similar to like your situation. I'm not saying that these are two exclusive concepts either, right? Yeah. I'm saying same person can like put these same messages like at the same time. It's just we as human beings aren't engineered or wired to critically think about ourselves in every relationship and every, it's like, because that's just not how we are. We're driven by emotion, impulse, everything else, right? So it's kind of hard to sometimes reel that in. But it's definitely a healthy, mature thing to not constantly, but regularly address yourself. It's like, okay, am I in the wrong here? And if you ever say that you're not wrong, like 100% in the wrong, I believe that even if you have done everything you can in each situation to not have things blow up or escalate, if they have blown up or escalated, then there is something you could have done. There's always something that you could have done. Granted, some people will just are wired differently and they'll just like explode anyway, right? Yeah. Granted, again, that's not your fault, but there's always like,
you're doing your best
for that to happen. There's always a give and take though, So there's at one point where you could just stop giving into that or stop feeding into that. So yeah, being
a human is very, very hard. It's
very hard.
A very hard thing to do, and a lot of people, I think they think that people, like some people have it easy. Like I've heard people say, like, not even to me, but just about other people, like, oh man, it must be so easy to be blank, and I'm like, nah. They're all fighting their own demons. Everybody's kind of doing their own thing. Whether or not you see it is up to them, I guess, if they want to expose that. But they're all going through the same social anxieties, and some people have better ways of dealing with it, some people have better ways of conquering it.
Absolutely.
But that doesn't mean that they're not fighting those demons alone either. They could be, really having a real tough time alone, and maybe you're not. So I don't know. There's give and takes everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely people that have the worst cuts of it.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, it's definitely not all equal in how lucky we get in our situations in our lives,
like what we're born into and stuff.
100%. But 100%. I do agree that doesn't mean people have it necessarily easy. If they are on the luckier side, they have their own demons that are relative to them,
right?
And those shouldn't be shortchanged, because understanding them will help them understand you and vice versa.
Right.
So it's especially hard on the internet when you don't have that face to face, and you have to just kind of believe their good intentions. So I would be curious to hear if you guys have any strategies or approaches in how you try to like look at people through a lens online to try to keep it friendly.
That's trying to. I'm even going through this right now where I didn't like The Last of Us as much as I think people thought I would, and so I posted those gameplays, and man, people are just raking me over the coals for it. And so
Mm-hmm.
what I've been trying to do, and this is the way I try to deal with people online, not texting friends or because texting friends is totally different than texting on the internet. Because texting a friend, you know them, you probably know them in person, you've seen them in person, you understand their mannerisms, kind of understand who they are and where they come from. So when you text them like a sarcastic joke or something, they'll probably get it. Because you know them and you're like, oh yeah, we have that relationship, we have that rapport. On the internet, I really try not to be as sarcastic as a lot of people are. I really try to be as literal as I can be because I've never met them. I don't know I don't know how they're
Sure.
gonna take it. I don't know what wavelength they're on. So a lot of the times I'll see that and I'll see people say, oh man, why were you being sarcastic? And I'm like, what? No, I wasn't being sarcastic. Or I'll see other people write something to me that seems sarcastic, and I'll be like, well, was that being sarcastic? Like, actually ask them. I just at this point, it's just all about the most transparent communication I could possibly go for, which is, it's just asking them what they mean. I'm giving you a chance to tell me, oh no, this was just a question. I wasn't being a dick. I wasn't being passive aggressive. I was just literally asking you a question. That's my strategy for dealing with people online, Criken. It doesn't work all the time. But that's what I do. I don't know about you guys.
I do a lot of basically approaching everyone and just giving immediately like respect and then like politeness, right? And then see how it's reciprocated basically. Obviously it doesn't work, but I try to just set the tone for every conversation to be just like a positive exchange.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone decides to be, well, then I take your approach, which is like, was that meant to be X, Y, and Z, right? Or was this meant to be sarcastic? Are you just being, a jerk? All that kind of stuff. But yeah, it sucks because sometimes like you genuinely just don't know, and then people, it's weird because even over text, people can. People tend to sometimes people I know in person, people over text are like two totally different, like they communicate in two totally different ways.
Oh yeah,
it's just weird.
Yeah,
I guess it's just like just because the screen is there and they don't see you personally, they just feel like they can say whatever they want.
Absolutely, 100%. Criken, I know about what do you do? You've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I try to stay out of it to the best of my ability.
Mm-hmm.
I like try to be that's an interesting approach, Bruce, to try to like hold your sarcasm at bay, because I think I often am very sarcastic on my content, and that kind of has hopefully built a place in a community where people are like clued in and they get it. But then every once in a while you say something, or a post you make or a stream you do gets out of your little bubble and like hits a larger audience, and you then have to realize, oh wait, I'm not talking in my own language to my own people anymore. I'm now representing something to a lot of other people, so I have to be a lot more careful on how I make these jokes or thing. So I think I personally still struggle with times where I reach that point and I suddenly get bubbled up to a bigger conversation, and then have to find a new method of language and communication that appeases more people, because it feels like I'm not being true to myself in order to cater to someone else's perspective or be cautious of someone else's potential reaction. So I've definitely had a couple moments where I think I've gotten upset and then like made a comment writing someone off, and I try not to do that. But that's usually when they're questioning my integrity as something that I care a lot about, and I can't for the life of me understand why they could not see that I'm genuine, for sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, it's
a close to home thing. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and it's also, I think, harder for creators like us that I think to some degree from doing this job, people stop seeing you as a human.
They do.
Or
they
see
totally
you,
do.
they see you as a source of entertainment or of opinion or a thing that turns on and off like the favorite TV show. But then once you start showing that you have these like human emotions and feelings and you have opinions on things they might not agree with, then suddenly they'll respond as if their favorite show just, killed off their favorite character.
Yep.
And you're like, that's not fair. I am still a person.
It's funny that we were talking about this because I just saw somebody in my chat say, I can't listen to them talk about this. Man, it really is just three privileged dudes trying to wrap their head around forced topics without much understanding or ability to communicate their ideas effectively. I'll drop by another time. Good night. So I think they're gone. And I don't want to.
Well, thank you first of all.
I don't want to say their name and call them out, but the first thing I thought of when he said that when they said that was that, hey, we've all gone through a lot of stuff too, and I don't know that they know how privileged we are or aren't, and that's sort of the important point to me that I think we were trying to make before, which was we don't know what people have gone through. We don't know what people have gone through to get where they are now. So when I see Criken online after 10 years, I'm not like, oh, this dude, all he's fucking done is live online. He's a fucking YouTube millionaire. Like, I don't think that, because I'm like, no, the guy's been working hard for years and years and years, because I have the background of knowing that it takes a lot of time and effort to get to where you are. And so it's just an interesting thing that I don't know that you can immediately assume that that these people are privileged, and here's why. Like, I don't know what Petah's been through. I don't know Petah that well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I have no idea what you've gone through in your life. I don't know if you've gone through, a bunch of deaths in the family, or I don't know if you've gone through a bunch of really hard relationships. Who knows?
Yeah.
And that's it's important to me to try to give everybody a clean slate before just being like, you're privileged. Peace.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I have an issue with that too. Also, the part about a forced topic and trying to talk about a forced topic, like this was this is a podcast where we don't have any forced topics.
That's true.
We started here from Pokemon Snap.
Yeah.
So I don't understand that mentality at all.
Yep.
I mean, just because we represent a different background or career than other people doesn't mean we can't also think about these things. And maybe when we're live talking about it on a show, we can't put it the beautiful prose of a full novel or post, but that's part of what the goal of podcast is people are just trying to speak their mind and come to conclusions together. So I don't know, I personally have a lot of issues with people that write people off like that.
Yep, we're just talking, and it's one of the, and it's, by the way, it's okay if it's not for you too. That's totally fine too. That's something that I've been saying a lot on my content recently, especially with the Last of Us stuff. I was like, if this isn't for you, that's all right. You don't need to watch it. Like, there are literally millions of other creators on the internet, and so maybe you'll like them better. I don't know, but I saw a really good quote a couple of months ago, and I'm sorry that I can't. I don't know the quote exactly, but the quote was basically like, it takes no time and effort to say something positive to a creator that will have a positive effect on them. But then when you say something negative to somebody, all you're doing is making it worse. All you're doing is hurting them. And like, criticism is totally fine. Valid criticism, especially if you feel like you've watched them in their current state for a long time or whatever. But just something negative that doesn't do anything for anybody. It only hurts. It's only mean, and I don't know that there is very much valid criticism on the internet. I don't know that I've seen very much of it. Sometimes I do. I try to make it pretty constructive. But it's always, I think it's just way cooler to just be positive with people. And if you don't like it, it's okay. You can move on and go watch somebody else. It's all right. It's not a big deal. You don't need to say something like, negative or mean, just because you could just be like, I'm going to move on, watch somebody else. It's all right. No big deal.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of the approach I take. It's like, all right, thank you for sharing your opinion, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Just if the person's already leaving, it's fine. They're entitled to their opinion, right?
Yeah.
It's not like I'm not gonna try and convince them that it's any different. It's like, it's okay. It's good. Like, I'll see you later.
Yeah.
And not even a toxic way. It's just let it go. Just let it go.
Totally.
It's too much happens every day to worry about those kind of details. And absolutely at points where you hit like low moments where like it stings, but I've just like just develop that like, you know, appreciate the people who are there to support you and, you know, give you positivity always. But for the people who like give you that, it's just like you just have to like mentally block them out and just be like, bye, goodbye. Yep. Just a passing name on a Twitch stream is like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I mean, like, there isn't much. I think that's actually why I like Twitch more than YouTube, is because Twitch makes you a little less anonymous.
Yeah, because it's right to your face and they can respond.
You can talk directly to them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's great, rather than YouTube, where it's just like somebody just kind of shouting into the ether and then they disappear forever because they can delete that account.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's these are just. I guess this is all a long-winded way of talking about Pokemon.
Yeah.
Pokemon.
So, Pete,
I can't believe Nintendo did this whole speech on their Nintendo Direct and really talked about empathy on the internet and everything.
Entitled 3 and 3 entitled Straight Man.
Actually, so the next thing I wanted to talk about or ask about, Petah, was I wanted to ask you about esports, because I've never really gotten to talk to anybody about esports, and I know you're not like.
Absolutely.
Would you consider yourself an esports athlete? Would you like, what's the furthest you've ever gone? How do you like? Just describe to me your journey.
So basically, what started was I started with Apex. I knew a couple people who just a couple connections to Respawn and like Apex coming out and everything, and I just from playing I realized that I was not too bad, and I thought like, okay, well, I've put some time into it back when it first came out. It's like I could really make something from this. So I did my best as I could, being a full-time student, gave it my shot, and basically it's really simple. It's esports is a lot about, and this is the part that people don't see. Esports is very much on the side of, at tier 1 anyway, like big names, you know, worldwide organizations, FaZe Clan, Cloud9, you know, Sea of Thieves, TSM. Esports is actually possibly more personality and character than it is individual skill. Obviously individual skill is important, but you have people who, you know, put the same amount of time, dedication, you know, top 1,000 players in the world on this game, right? They could probably compete with each other like all the same, right? Not much of a difference. Personalities though are really important. So I learned that early on, that, and where I failed was gathering that social media following, that clout and everything else, right? To try and like put myself as a name out there to be picked up for a team like FaZe or Cloud9 and all that. And basically my experience was I got picked up by a tier 2 org called Criken Esports. They had mostly dominated a lot of the local US and like specifically like I want to say Louisiana, like Southern State area region of fighting games. So Dragon Ball Z, you know, all that good stuff, Tekken, and they were trying to branch out into FPS. I got lucky. They signed me on for like 6 months. I was like, all right, let's give it a shot. Let's go. And then I quickly got to the point where I did the problem where I jumped into something without realizing how it was going to pan out. And I realized that I really didn't like how the competitive rank structure for Apex was panning out. It was just, like, I don't want to do this. Yeah. This is not, like, I had no passion for this. So, you know, time finished, moved on from that. But I did learn a lot about, because I would compete with, and I'll also say that Apex's competitive scene was a little bit less developed than obviously
it was a new game.
Scene like Cloud9 and everything else. And because of the fact that it's not exactly the best spectator sport, in fact, it kind of like, you know, puts you to sleep a little bit. It was hard for it to continue to grow. Yeah, but it basically came down to realizing that you can't just be like just the best. You also there is a good amount of personality and like character that goes into esports actually. So, like you have to also sell the org like as a person.
So I was like, Peter, you've got a lot of personality from what I know of you.
Oh, I appreciate that.
So
thank you.
So how did you run into that and be like, oh shit, I'm not the right personality for this?
It basically came down to there's different types for sure. I would say that the biggest thing is people who are into the type of personality for competitive games versus, like let's say you. Let's compare you and, because this is the easiest I can come up with. Let's compare you and let's compare someone like, I don't know, let's say one of let's say CS:GO pro like Stewie 2K, right? Fantastic North American player, won US its first CS:GO victory in major. Basically, the core difference is you have two audiences. You have two completely different audiences. Your community, wonderful, positive, it's like there for a good time, and it's like people enjoy being there, right? As to watch your content. His audience, not saying that there's anything wrong with them, they're there for the clips, they're there for and then also the type of games and the type of things that you do form the different communities. There's a lot of toxic people in CS. There's a lot of toxic people in any competitive game that you play, Apex being one of them too. There's just like different audiences, and obviously it's more okay or they're more accepting of, like, let's say I never necessarily wanted to be a super toxic person, right? I didn't try to talk too much shit. I didn't try to, my entire thing was like humility, because it's a high road. You look better taking the high road anyway, and that's what I always told, because after I finished, I was like coaching for a little while for the same team, right? I was like, I don't want any negativity or like toxicity from any of you, because it makes the org look bad, it makes you look bad, all these other things, right? But at the same time, it's hard to prevent that from happening, because the environment in which they're the environment that they're competing in is like people are toxic anyway. It's like everyone wants to win, everyone wants to, like everything. So I guess that's like that was a source of discourse for me, because it's like I'm not willing to compromise that. I'm not willing to do that. Really, I don't want to do that. And anytime I am toxic, it's with people I know, and they all understand it's for comedy's sake. It's a joke. There's a there's a thing, there's a gag behind it. But it just turned me off so bad, because at the end of the day, like for some people, this was their livelihood, and it was just super, super, super toxic. And I guess that's like that's the personality of someone who can navigate that well. Me, maybe now, couple years later, I could probably navigate it. Would I want to though? No.
Oh yeah.
No, not at all.
That makes sense.
Not at all. I'd much rather not.
Criken, I don't know if you have any esports related questions for Petah or not.
I guess I am interested in, so an esport kind of tournament is, I think, most people's exposure to esports, right? Is like when it's the top teams up against each other, and it's not really about any individual person. I guess it's a little bit different for a thing like Apex, because it's more individualized and small squad based.
Right. Yeah.
But you guys are all like seeking to be the best, and it's less about each of you individually as a person, more about your performance in the game, compared to, I'd say, the 90% of an esport competitors' actual experience, which is just training and like either streaming their training or, as you're describing, being a personality just like anyone else would be. I guess I'm curious on, does the personality component of esports also apply to the former, where you're in a tournament and it's more about your kind of how well you're performing, or is it just kind of in the training, the downtime that you think you really prove your worth as an esports player?
I would say that it depends. I never managed to get to because again, I was just tier 2, and funding was a bit loose for us to go out to like some more major LAN events in like New York and stuff, when Apex was still in it, when the scene was still in its infancy. I would say that yes, absolutely. Because if we're talking from esports, from the scene of like, let's leave Apex for a second. Let's go to something more established, right? Let's talk CS, right? Absolutely. In a meta game where pretty much all the top competitors, right, know each other, right? They know who each other are. They know the prestige behind everybody else. Absolutely, you do, because you start to get to a point where people are put on a pedestal and you can't touch them. Not really, right? like no matter what you do, this guy will smack you every single time, right? Absolutely, personality does everything to drive that forward. How they present themselves on their stream, how they perform in game, their attitude, everything just is like it explodes based off of your performance in a game. If you decide to, and I mean that in the sense of like, let's say like so and so pulls off like regularly, like I'm gonna use the example of now simple a Russian like a CIS player from Ukraine that's currently playing for Naudis Vincere on CS, right? I think 2 years in a row he's been the number 1 player in the world, right? The reason why he's able to stay at number 1 is because he basically had to build, like not only is he mechanically like a super amazing player, right? He had to basically build this character, this representation of himself in the game that was like almost untouchable.
Right.
Like this guy would be able to. It's almost like kind of like the closest thing I can do that everyone can relate, that understands a little bit, is like Shroud. Shroud in a online lobby against regular people, right? He's just untouchable, and it totally carried over into as his personality. Like he used to be really toxic, but he got humbled. But in the fact that he's untouchable and he's just like this pedestal, right? Totally affects how people treated him, how people played against him, right? People give him more respect because the more and more times they try to not give him respect and just try and level him out in their head mentality, like the metagame mentality wise, like he's just another player. We just got to beat him. He would just continually to prove is like, no, I'm the better player, shut him down every single time. And that's why he was able to stay at the top for so long, because it is a metagame. When you get to a community where it's small enough, or a scene where it's small enough that everyone knows each other, 100% it'll constantly be bugging in your head. It's like, we got to watch out for this guy.
Well, I mean,
and even if you're actively trying to put it out of your head, like it's there for sure.
What you're describing are mind games. That's what pretty much. It's one of those things that if you watch football at all, or like what they do this really cool thing where I think it's the NFL Network will mic players as they play the game.
Yeah.
And basically all the players are doing is trying to psych each other out. They're trying to play the confidence game over and over and over. They're yelling at each other, like insulting each other. Sometimes they're making jokes with each other because it like disarms people. And then the play comes down, they actually run the play, and then whatever happens happens. And then afterwards, of course, they're talking shit, they're bragging, and they're whatever, playing more mind games. And it was interesting that off stream, when you were talking about it, you're like, yeah, CS:GO is a confidence-based shooter. I'd never thought of that.
It is.
And so, but describe to me what you mean by confidence-based shooter.
Okay. You have it's the same thing as basketball. You know how people LeBron James or Derrick Rose will say like, it's just I have that hot spot. It's like I'm on fire. I just know everything feels right. Every shot I'm taking is exactly the same thing. You have to have like it's a mental, just like anything else in the world. It's a mental game. You have to acknowledge that you're on top of this. You have to acknowledge like, okay, I got this. If you are wavering, even like I would say it's more important in CS, right? Because you have like nanoseconds to respond sometimes to something, and you just have to be ready. If you're not mentally correct, you're gonna lose. So making sure you're able to hit shots, making sure you're like reading things correctly, right? If somebody is giving is basically dominating that game, right? You feel the presence everywhere on the map. It screws with you because it interrupts your ability, depending on how you play, to be comfortable and confident around that person. You miss shots, your timing is wrong. Like maybe you don't miss shots, but things are sloppy. You get the kill slower than you should. You take more damage in that gunfight, in that trade than you should have. All sorts of stuff. People make dumb mistakes as far as like in fact it's so prevalent that there's a whole other science behind CS when it comes to analysts as to like, okay, so this guy, Kenny S, right? Phenomenal player, probably one of the best operators in all of EU, right? Chokes. If his team is doing bad, he cannot pull it together. And for the longest time, he had the record of like, if Envious is not doing well, guy's gonna tank. Okay.
Really?
The team has to be doing well, otherwise the pressure gets to him and he just starts slipping everywhere. Especially him being like a precision player is like, every single, like, not even just mouse movement, but like everything has to be perfectly on point. And it just gets to people, man. So that's why I always say, and people take this into just like regular games, and so I'm always telling like people that play competitive games, mute the other team, because if they're talking smack and it's getting to you and you're responding to them, you're literally doing what they want.
Right.
They're throwing you off your game.
Right.
They're going to beat you if that's the case. Mute the other team. If they start talking smack, if they start talking, it's just like ignore them. You don't need it. And then I always tell us like, and also don't be toxic to your teammates. It's a team-based game. You're trying to work together to win, right? Don't shoot yourself in the foot. Don't make your teammates play worse than they already are like not feeling it. Give positive reinforcement. Give them a reason to like find that momentum and be like, okay, you know what, we got this. We're fine. It's like to just shake it off, like just like keep going, right? Because 100%, if you're not feeling it in a game where you have like literally fractions of a seconds to respond, you'll mess it up. And then time is very important in those games. So you make misjudges and miscalls on like steps, on where you're supposed to go, everything. It's 100%. You can have the best aim in the world, but if you don't know how to control your nerves, and if you don't know how to control like the meta game behind people talking smack and people getting into your head, it's over.
Yep.
Like, I don't care how good you are, you're gonna lose 100%.
I mean, like they say this all the time, and I always took it for granted when you're watching the NBA Finals, or you're watching the Super Bowl, you're watching like basically the highest of the high in terms of tournaments. It's the players that do the best if their team is doing the worst. So if they're clutching is what it boils down to. If they're clutching, those are the best players in the world. The ones that can actually basically like they can reverse the bad momentum.
Simple.
And that's
simple.
And it's one of those things where like there are, I mean, that there's a handful of people like that in the world at the highest level. Michael Jordan was one of them who like it didn't matter how bad his team was doing. He could clutch. It didn't matter. It didn't. He still had the right. He still had the confidence. He still had the right mindset, and obviously the skills to deliver. So that's one of those things that like I always found it just fascinating about, because I love competitive games. I love competitive anything, and I love competition, and I'm competitive myself. I used to be really competitive, not as much anymore because I know there's kind of no sense to compete for a lot of the stuff that I play. But it is really interesting to hear the different mindsets of people. Like you thought, like I never even thought that confidence would play a part in a shooter.
100%.
Never even think about
100%. Yeah.
So I don't
because if you look at these top players for any game, right? You watch them play casually, they destroy people. They're reading everything correctly. Their aim is correct. It's like it's on point, everything. But then they come to a tournament and they don't perform as well. Is it because the competition is higher, or is it because you're starting to feel like, okay, this guy's owning me, and then this like the pressure of being at the scene is the pressure of losing. Some of these people, their contracts are like per month is per tournament, right? I gotta perform here, right? There's a million different things that nag and pull at them. So players who are able to like, Michael Jordan, who just, it doesn't matter. The stakes, everything, it doesn't matter. They're able to just pull through no matter what. I think that they're honestly, it's more impressive, their mindset and mentality, than their physical prowess and their ability, because that is a huge thing to be able to lock that out of your brain. It's insane. Like, how do you do that?
I don't know. I'm not sure. It's
insane. I don't know.
This might be a stretch, but I'm curious your guys' opinion on whether or not someone that might have, let's say, like a personality disorder, or somewhat like a, basically the ability to tune out, that voice in their brain that's telling them to like second guess themselves. Either they're, they don't see other people. I don't want to go as far as like, sociopathic, but like that level of psychology. And would that make a difference to an esports player, that is able to focus entirely on themselves and not on the people around them? Would that be an advantageous element in their gameplay?
Yes, I think so. And actually, it's funny you mentioned that and asked that question because I was just thinking that when Bruce was bringing it up, it's like all these people who sit on the top of the world when it comes to their sports, when it comes to being able to just ignore what's happening right in front of them and just do their job, do what they need to do, and play like there's nothing has changed, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, is it almost like full blown arrogance? Is it almost like no? I'm legitimately. It's like, is it really full blown arrogance? Is it really like they just mentally 100% believe that they're just better and everyone is beneath them? You know, and it doesn't even have to be in a negative connotation. I'm just saying, like as an example, right? It's like I think in some situations it might 100%. Be because there's no other way.
Yeah.
There's no other way. If you're like a humble guy, right? And everything, it's 100%. Unless it's a show, that there's got to be some empathy there. You know, there's got to be some like human connection that makes you think like, okay, let's stay humble. I'm not like, you know, I'm always trying to climb to be the best. You know, all that stuff, right? Then that means you make mistakes, though. You know, it's just humanly natural that you do that because that thought already exists. That, you know, there's always room to improve. But if you just believe to your core, like, no, I'm better. I've always been better. Everyone else is beneath me. This is my game, right?
But you think that would also negatively affect your team, which we already talked about 100%. As being a, you know, but maybe that is like for the star players that will always shine no matter how their team's doing. You know, maybe that is a side effect is that, you know, the team knows they don't care or, you know, they don't need them, and therefore they get down on themselves based on their performance. I'm not sure. I'm talking out of my ass here, but like I think I would be personally really interested to hear kind of a breakdown or almost like a debate between athletes on if there is any room for empathy or like, you know, like where is there you have to be purely
that's a good question.
Arrogant to succeed in sports, because that to me immediately locks like any interest I have in competing out, because I would never willingly kind of subject myself to that. So like
I wouldn't say so. No,
I'm curious. Yeah, you really think no?
I will say that again, going back to this example, it's just because I follow the CS scene so well, because I'm so like for a long time I did, and just because I just found it so interesting, I put a lot of time into it. Number one player in the world, right? Simple, from Ukraine, CIS. Number one player in the world, has been considered for a long time, officially considered that for like 2 years straight, right? But a lot of people have considered him the best player in the world, just like overall stats, everything, right? Has never won a major. He's never won a major. And in his younger years, he was constantly thrown from team to team because he was an arrogant, toxic teammate. Teams wouldn't mesh well with him, you know? He's since changed a lot. He's changed a lot, you know? His mentality and a lot of stuff is different. His public appearance, you know, everything else. He's much different, right? He still believes that he's on the top of the game, right? But he, in no means is he like, I'm untouchable, you know? It's just basically like, I work real hard, I practice, you know, and then I don't want to take away from the accomplishments of my fellow competitors, right? So he knows what he's doing now. But then you have a team where like goes down in like CS history, a Danish team called Astralis, right? There is no star player. It's literally a team of 5 people who just consistently like won like 6 majors in a row.
Those are my
right?
those are my favorite teams. Those are my favorite teams. Where there is no star. It's just
there is no star player. It's crazy.
There's a perfect mesh there. And like a lot of people would talk about, now obviously Golden State Warriors when they were good a few years ago. Obviously Steph Curry was one of their best, and they had a bunch of star players on their team. But watching the Golden State Warriors play versus watching a team like Jordan's Chicago Bulls play, it's to me it's more. Man, what's the right word? It's more magical. It's more like ethereal, because all of these guys are all on the same flow. They're all on the same wavelength, and they have to be for you know, whatever it is, 120 minutes or however long a basketball game is. They have to be like that all the time, and it doesn't matter if they're losing, if they're winning. It doesn't matter. They're all on the same wavelength, and they do it hundreds of times a year. That to me is so much harder than just being a really good player.
It is insanely. It's like so unbelievable, because not only is it like just I can't. It's like it's amazing to think how much time they put into doing that. Just proximity to each other as human beings, like just to be able to achieve that. And then also it's giving up ego, it's giving up personal, there's a lot of sacrifice to make a team happen like that. And like I said, in a game where a lot of things like you get to where you are because your personality, right? It's kind of hard to let that go. Kind of hard to.
Oh, that's true.
It's hard to shape a team that way because in a game where it starts out as personalities, it's like people are like, oh, so he's number one player in the world. He could go to any team he wants to. It's like, can he though? Can he? He's not the only personality in the world. Like, what team can he go to outside of the one that exists right now? Like, what team would pretty much take their top player or top two, or like a couple star players, right? And now there are teams where the star player is actively like sacrificing his personal glory for the better of the team, right?
LeBron
is a good team captain.
Yeah, LeBron did that for years.
So, yeah, exactly. Yeah. But people usually won't do that,
They won't.
I think a good example was do you remember like Linsanity, like back in I want to say 2000 and when was that? Jeremy Lin.
Yeah.
So I don't remember exactly the star player on his team at the time, but I remember that he got pushed out actually from the team that he was playing on because basically he was getting too much traction and he was taking away too much of a limelight from his fellow teammate who was A, getting paid more, and B, was supposed to be the star player of the team, and he was just like, this is bullshit, I don't want this guy, blah blah blah. It's like that happens constantly everywhere. That's
a good question, Criken, because I think it's way cooler to have a bunch of people you've never heard of band together as a team and be the best.
Yeah.
Because
it's amazing.
Because it's also, like, this is probably just my opinion, but I think that's what think that's what makes humans great, is that humans can band together. And obviously we have our stars, right? We've got our Albert Einsteins, we've got our Galileos, we've got our Socrates. But generally speaking, if we all band together, we can do something pretty amazing versus just one or two people that are the best and really arrogant about it.
For sure.
I don't know. It's I think it's cooler, and it also teaches a better lesson.
For sure.
Then be the best. Know you're the best, and everyone else can go to hell.
Basically.
But yeah, I don't know. It's fun to talk about esports in that way because it's a world I don't think about hardly at all, and I know you've been exposed to it a little bit, Petah.
A little bit, teeny bit.
Yeah, a little bit. So, Criken, is there anything you're competitive in? Is there anything like that really brings out the competition in Criken?
Very rarely. I get competitive in Pokemon, I think, which is one of the few games that I had like considered dabbling in the competitive scene.
Okay.
But then I like spend more time looking at it and I'm like, oh, it's just all the same shit over and over again. Like there's really no room for creativity. And then I was like, then why would I do this? And then I just went back to doing that.
Right. Gotcha.
But in theory, I like the concept of being competitive in games that I really care about. It's just that most of those games happen to be PvE games because I don't have that same drive to dominate another player. It just doesn't really appeal to me that much.
Yeah. I mean, I'll admit, it feels really good when you take a game, a map, and then basically it's like, this guy's going to do this, this guy's going to do this, this guy's going to do this, and you read them all perfectly. It is the most, sometimes the best feeling. It's just being able to like own other people in a game. It's just,
we've talked.
Yeah, I get that. My roommates at a point was a competitive Smash player. And so I would talk with him a lot about, he played Ice Climbers and Melee, so he was a very specific kind of person. But we got along really well. And I do like playing Smash, non-competitively, but I do get competitive when playing with friends and that. So
sure,
there's like, I can still enjoy a competitive game. It's just that, I don't know. It's tough for me to really be like, being the number one, being my end all, just seems like such a difficult goal.
Well, the internet, no, you're the same with me. The internet really widened my scope because I remember being like trying to play games at a pretty high level early on.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember,
Sure.
I remember thinking this is, and everybody thought this, by the way. I'm sure I wasn't good, but I thought I was good at GoldenEye.
Mhm.
And
Dude, what a game!
you never get to play GoldenEye online, so you'd play with your friends, right? So you'd play with your
Yeah.
your same 12 friends or whatever, and then I'm sure I've told this story before. We played Halo, the first Halo, and the first Halo
Yeah.
you play with your friends. You get you whatever 2 Xboxes, you'd land them together and you play, and they're like, oh man, you're the best of the 8 people in the room, and then and then all of a sudden they came out with the Xbox Tunnel, which was just an app that somebody had developed where they're like, basically it fools the internet into thinking you're landing with another Xbox and you get to play online. And this is before Xbox Live, and so we tunneled with a few other times and just got destroyed. And that was the first time I was like, oh fuck, that's right, because I'm not playing this game 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'm not as good as this one dude down the street because this one dude down the street is doing that. And so then the more that I play competitive games, the more I'm just like, I can't invest the time. I want to. I wish I had years ago, but I just couldn't. I went to school and I had relationships and I had a job and like shit like that. So it's like, I think it's really cool that people invest the time and get really good at a game like that, because I just didn't do it. So I love watching people at a high level because it's going to be something I can never do.
Getting laid, as one of your members says.
I mean, wrong, but at the same time, like, I cared about my relationship. I cared about my friends. I cared about doing things outside and like playing sports and like doing that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Like tried to have a balanced life. So in that sense, I was never going to be the best at anything. Because I, especially like on the worldwide stage. So to me, it's interesting to see people like Chun. We played with Chun. We played this guy named Chun Criken. We played Warzone with this guy, and he streams. I think he streams like 12 hours a day. He's been doing it for years. He plays, and all he plays is Warzone, and he's a monster. He's like
insane.
Watching this guy play this game is like it's like a completely different game. And I was watching him. I was watching because we played with him, and I was watching him play, and I was just like, this is impossible. I'm never gonna look like that. I'll never ever get anywhere near this level. And it's fun to watch. It's really cool. It's really neat.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It also just seems like such a lofty goal to set for yourself to be finally satisfied. That it
you
doesn't
never
appeal
are.
to me. Yeah, it's like I need to be the best in the world, and it's like, okay, well, say goodbye to the next 5 years of your life, and even then, I mean, what? That's even really not nearly enough, right? So it just seems like such a unrealistic thing.
My flip side to Bruce's experience was I would play like casually, offline, and then one day I decided to start playing games. Like I started just playing more and more online, right? Just shooters. I was that kid that would have a blast with like, I don't know, like Battlefront 1.
Yeah.
Offline, just playing it over and over and over. Great game by the way, still holds up. And then I move on to online games, and then I was like, and again amongst my friends, it's like I'll be the best. It's like, oh yeah, it's like I'm pretty good. Walk into it, get slapped across the face, but I just got drawn to the idea of just being better. I guess when I was younger, it was just like I just want to win, and it's not necessarily even about winning. It's about being consistently good and just being above average and just like being on top. And it's not like I had this compulsive thing to be like, I gotta be better than everyone else. It's just I wanted to do well, regardless of what I was doing. I just wanted to do well, and then that just set off a whole thing. And I used to spend hours in a CS map where I would have it set up so I just have infinite smokes and Molotovs and flashes, and I would find new pop flash spots. I would find new cross map smokes. Absolutely ridiculous stuff. I'm gonna tell you right now, I barely used any of them because they're very situational and specific, right? But I would nail stuff, and then a new map would get updated, all my progress is ruined, just to go back to the drawing board. But yeah, I got really deep into it.
That's how you do that, though. That's how you do it. It's like, because what you did was, even though you're like, I didn't use the Molotovs or whatever, you didn't use those specific placements. You learned the maps. So you knew those
Yeah.
maps backwards and forwards. You had those memorized in your brain, and
Mhm.
way more so than a dude like me who would hop into a CS lobby and be like, "Oh, play a little CS." Like, I know the maps a little bit.
Yeah.
No, dude, you were spending hours and hours doing that, and that's how it works. It's like that's how basketball players sit there and shoot free throws for 10 hours. They do
10
the
hours,
same
yep.
thing over and over and over because it becomes muscle memory. It's not even a skill anymore. It's,
Exactly. That's exactly it. People think that you need to have great aim in a game like Valorant or CS or even Apex. No, you need to have good crosshair placement and muscle memory as to like, this is head level here. People usually sit right here. People usually sometimes are like over here. People could be holding this corner tight here, and your gun is already there and ready and waiting for their head to just move into places to where you're looking. People don't like just do. Everybody seems to think that like really high level games are just people doing flick shots, right, or just getting impressive like taps and stuff. It's like, no, everything's intentional. Everything is intentional. And I feel like that's a big misconception, actually. It's like, no, everything is intentional. Everything is calculated in a competitive shooter at a high level. Everything is intentional. Yeah.
That makes sense. I don't know. This the competition stuff. Like, I'm like you, Peter, where I always wanted to be good at something. It's like, but I never sat down and was like, I'm going to be good at this, and I'm going to spend all my time doing it. Other than school.
Oh yeah.
And then eventually I hated school.
Yeah.
But
Same.
yeah, so I wanted to get out. But like, and also my job has always been really important to me. So when I would get a job, whether or not it was whatever, it didn't matter what job it was. It was like, I'm going to be really good at this. So I would dedicate all of my brain power to, as soon as I went into my job, it was like every waking minute was dedicated to that. And it's like now working at home, it's like, I don't really stop working. I know Criken knows this. Peter, you probably know this now too, because you just started on this. Where now it probably doesn't really ever feel like you stop working.
Nope.
There are little breaks you take here and there, but
Yep.
but you don't go to an office. You're at home. So
No. Yep.
and that's how I feel now too. So I think if I considered CS or Halo or whatever my job, then maybe I could have turned that. But I just never did. I always thought it was. I always thought of it as fun. not a job, and I should have thought it was as a job if I was going to be the next Shroud. But guess what? I'm not. I'm not going to be the next Shroud, so it doesn't matter.
No, never say never.
Yeah, I don't know. We got like 45-year-old, nearly 50-year-old competitive players that played from like the original CS that are still playing
Really?
CS:GO. I'm just saying, yes,
Well,
yeah.
I'm gonna have to really. I'm gonna have to really get started on that. I'm way behind.
Again, remember what I was saying about how it's all like a mentality game, though.
Yeah.
And that, right? Those like the edge that they have above every other team is that they've been doing it for so long. Scoreboard doesn't matter. Scoreboard doesn't matter. They'll pull back like 3-13 losses. Like it's nobody's business. Like no problem. They're just on top of it. They never let it get to their heads. Those guys are the ones that you never see crack. They may not be the youngest. They may not do the most flashiest, most insane like stuff.
Yeah.
But they don't make mistakes. Like they never make mistakes.
Yeah,
It's like they're like the constant, like consistent ones.
Criken, is there anything that you never make a mistake on, ever? What are you perfect at? There's one thing that I know you're the best at. So what is it? What do you think you're the best at? Just say sex, Criken. Just say sex.
Yeah.
I had it right there.
No.
It was lined up for you.
No, really. What do you consider yourself to be really, really good at?
I don't know. I don't even know if it's like any specific game. I think it would be more like
No, it doesn't have to be a game. It could be anything, any skill in any part of life.
I think I'm like really good at reading. Like, this is gonna sound really hippy dippy, I guess, but like,
No, do it. Yeah.
reading like the energy of a room or of a person. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good in those situations, and then like I don't always like act on, like I don't really use it in any way, but it's like I have a pretty good sense of what the energy is. I don't know.
That makes sense.
Dumb,
No,
but
that makes total sense.
No, yeah, it totally makes
I
sense.
can see that about you too. What about you, Peter? What do you feel this is anything, by the way, video games, life. What do you feel like something you're really, really good at?
That's very similar to what Criken was talking about. Is being able to it's almost bad because you think that you're making a split second assumption off of a person, off of like the first few words, right? But it's helpful, right? It helps you better communicate to them, make that relationship happen immediately, right? Like connect with them, being able to read people for sure, yeah. And then I'm sure as like a as a content creator must help a lot, right? As being able to uh, understand like the audience like immediately, and then being able to obviously it's vast, there's lots of different people, there's lots of different, you can't please everyone, right? But you can kind of like gauge things based off of like reading a room for sure, which is really important. I think that's one of the life's like greatest skills, like being able to be a people person and being able to understand other people, because I name one job where you don't interact with like, well, I mean, I'm sure there's quite a few jobs that you don't interact with other people, but majority of any profession, career, hobby, you're interacting with other people,
100%,
right?
yeah.
So it's just one of the greats, like one of life's greatest skills to have is being able to do exactly what like he's talking about. I don't think I'm the best at it, right? But I think I'm adequate.
Yeah. No, that's
It's a learned thing too. You just got to keep
Absolutely.
having life experiences, really.
Yeah. You just got to communicate and talk to people all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. I think for me, it's probably focus. I'm really good at focusing on something. So it's like if it's one singular task or if it's a bunch of tasks, for some reason that's just something I know how to do. I
just drive.
I got very lucky because a lot of people I know they weren't born with that, and I was. Of like, and this is the way it's always been ever since I was a kid, where I could sit down and if something needed to be done, I'd just get it done. Like I didn't procrastinate. I just got it done. It's, I don't know. It's something that, like I said, I feel myself as very, very lucky because a lot of people have ADD or they have a shorter attention span or whatever. That's really hard for them to focus. And I feel bad for that because I don't know how to do that. I really don't. It's weird. Yeah, it's very, very strange, but and also sex too. Sex, I'm really
of course,
I'm really
of course,
good at it since nobody else said it. All right, well we've reached the end of the podcast. We made it here. Petah,
we made it.
Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, Petah, thanks for being on.
This was fun.
Yeah, this is like I said, poor Lawrence really messed himself up a couple hours ago, so hopefully he'll be better next week.
Hope he's all right.
I think he was being too competitive with the weights.
Yeah, was that his like home weight setup, or does he start going to the gym again?
No, he has a home weight setup, and it's awesome. By the way, he's got like fucking 5 machines and a whole
wow.
It's really great. It's a really great home gym that he's got. So I hope he's doing okay. I've done exactly that. I know that feels, it's the worst because you're lifting and you're like, oh, I'm doing something good for myself, and then you pull a muscle and you're like, fuck, and you're out of commission for 3 or 4 days because you thought you were doing something good for yourself. It's really stupid. But anyways, okay. Well, we will say goodbye to YouTube. You guys can stop your recordings.
Okay.
All right. Goodbye, YouTube. Thanks for watching.
Bye, everybody.